The 2024-25 Women's Super League is on the horizon. In preparation, we're previewing every single team and discussing how they'll shape up over the next campaign. We take a look at the transfer business conducted by the teams so far and offer suggestions of who else they should move for before the season gets underway. Now we're on to Brighton. With a new manager at the helm and a lot of business done already, we debate whether this can propel them up the WSL table. We also discuss how the loss of Turner will affect them and how big an impact Fran Kirby can have this campaign. This is our 2024-25 season preview for Brighton. Alright, let's get into this then. Brighton up today. We'd like to start these by talking about their last season. It was a bit of a weird one for Brighton. Obviously, they climbed in the table from 11th to 9th, but I don't think that really tells the whole story. Last season, every team from about, 11th to about 7th were within a couple of points. So that doesn't really paint the whole story, and I don't think Brighton actually made up that much ground. They started kind of slow under Melissa Reynolds. I think that they relied very heavily on Ellie Turland, which is understandable. She's a fantastic player, and they're gutted now that she's gone. But I think that in that regard, it didn't really work out. Reynolds was sacked. Mike Harris came in as an interim manager, and they managed to. They were always going to be safe because of Bristol City. So in that regard, they were okay. But I think in this season, where we expect Crystal Palace to offer more of a fight, and we expect there to be a bit more jeopardy, I think there will be some concerns for Brighton.
Yeah, very much so. It was a bit of a weird season. Obviously, they had a massiv transfer window at the start of last season.
Theme at the moment with the Brighton team.
Yeah, they brought in so many players, and there were some big names in there. You looked at, I remember seeing Forrest Dotter's name there, going, "Oh, that's an interesting signing," and they made a lot like that. And I don't think all of them were successes. Some of them really didn't work out. But the main thing is they've stayed up, they made an improvement in league position, and they'll be hoping under new management, with more signings coming in the door, that they can push on again this season.
It just seems to be the approach of, if we sign loads of players, at least one of them's got to be Ellie Turland. So in that regard, it worked out because she was one of the top goal scorers in the WSL last season, and we're going to talk about in a moment how they replaced her, because obviously she has now left on a free. But first, let's talk about their new manager, because they do have a new man at the helm, and that is Dario Vidosic. Now, fans of Australian football, all 5 of them out there, no, I think will recognise this name because he was an Australian footballer, and he was the manager of Melbourne City Women for the last 2 seasons, where he won the A-League title but lost the grand final to Sydney. I don't know. I don't watch Australian football, so I don't know what the grand final is. I assume it's like those leagues where you have a league phase and it splits off into a playoff type system, like the NWSL. But now he's come over to proper football, and we're going to see whether that can translate. 52.38% win percentage, so very strong out there. And he had a great time. It's going to be interesting to see whether that translates across to Brighton, because we saw Reynolds, who did great in America and was a really exciting up-and-coming young manager, comes across to the WSL, and it just didn't really translate. It didn't really work in those early parts of this season. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes across. I think he'll do well. For everything I've seen of him in pre-season, he comes across very well. And I think that's obviously from being a player. He's had that media training, so I guess in that regard it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, he just comes across really, really well. So I think they've made a good appointment here. I think he'll do well. Yeah, it's Brighton seems to be on the up.
It's interesting. He was a good player in his day, and I think it's a gamble. Brighton seem to love a gamble. Let's sign everyone and bring a manager that is very inexperienced in terms of WSL. I think the football out in Australia is very far off the quality of the WSL. Not ridiculously far off, but there is a big gap.
I think the women's game is closer. When I was saying Vidosic played what wasn't really football, it was the A-League in the men's game isn't anywhere near.
And also you see the amount of Australian footballers that come over and do really well, and hopefully that'll be the same for managers, and Dario will be hoping that Brighton get off to a good start. I think that's the main thing, is get off to a positive start for Brighton, because things, they were started slow under Reynolds, and then Reynolds her campaign never really got going, and then she was sacked. So for Brighton, they'll be hoping they can get off on the front foot and get some momentum going under Vidosic.
Yeah, for the record though, I do think Reynolds with time would have come good. I just think that there was so much overhaul at the club. Yeah. And I don't know why Brighton have done it again. I know a lot of players have left on free and they've sort of had their hand forced in that regard. But they've got to start signing players on more than 1 year contracts. If not, the same thing is going to happen every window, where they just seem to buy a whole new club every time. Yeah. So let's run through the list of outgoings. Now, this graphic looks mental because I had to put... I didn't really know how to fit all the names on, but I've just about managed to do it. They have sold a lot of players. We'll start from the top and work our way down. Vyatriki Sari, the Israeli winger, joining Everton, leaving Brighton to join Everton. I don't think it's a massive loss. She wasn't fantastic last season, but she did have moments of brilliance, and I think she will be quite a useful addition to an Everton attack that lacks creativity, lacks firepower. So a good signing for them, not a huge loss for Brighton. Emma Kullberg, the fullback, is going to Juventus. It's a good signing for Juventus. Yep. It's a big loss for Brighton, I think. I think they've done okay, though, to replace her, and I think Meng Wen Lee will have an increased role this season. Yeah. But that's it. That is a big loss, Kullberg. Tatiana Pinto is joining Atletico Madrid. She is a very good player. She only spent a year here. She joined last summer from La Liga. Now she's headed back to La Liga, I believe. So, yeah, it's interesting to see. I mean, again, as I say, Brighton are losing a lot of players after only a year. Lula Jarvis, not a huge loss. She's stepping down to play for Plymouth Argyle. Then the big ones. Katie Robinson joining Aston Villa on a free. The fact that she isn't signed either to a contract or having to be sold for a fee is mental to me.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Like, surely that is the prerogative, is to make sure Kate Robinson's here for the long term. They've now lost her to Aston Villa, and I can see why she'd want to leave, because the Villa project seems sustainable, and the Brighton project at the moment just seems to be we're going to sign a whole new club every summer.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's numerous names on this outgoings list that Brighton have lost for absolutely nothing. It's
most of them, I think. I don't think any have gone for
it. It just won't work. It just will not work if this carries on. They've got to start signing players to multi-year contracts, and I know it's difficult, but they've got to start committing to players, and then if they're going to lose, then they've got to sell them for a fee, because this is a massive loss of money. Because I look at players like Robinson, Kullberg, Pinto. These are the type of players that could be going for decent money.
Yeah, and the biggest one, Elizabeth Turland.
Yeah,
that's one of the top goal scorers in WSL last season. That would be a 300,000 pound player there, and they've lost for nothing to Manchester United. Yeah. It's a huge loss for Brighton. Well, when we get to United, we'll be talking about how big a game it is, because she is a top striker. But for Brighton, she kept them in the league pretty much last season. And again, if it was in a season where they didn't have Bristol City, which gave them a big buffer, because Bristol City are only on like 6 points, I believe, and Brighton on 18, they would have been in more trouble in seasons gone by. So they were fortunate in that regard. I think, Turland was fantastic last season. It's a huge loss, and I don't think they've done much to replace her yet, which is a massive worry going into the new season. Sidri Schreimeyer has also stepped down to go and play for Lewis, and Giulia Zigliotti joining Bayern Munich, another big loss. It's a summer that's going to be very difficult to recover from for Brighton.
Yeah, definitely. They've been fleeced, and these players are good because you look at the sides they're going to. They're going to Bayern Munich, they're going to Man United, they're going to Juventus and Atletico Madrid.
Even Aston Villa.
Yeah, these players are leaving to big sides, which shows you the quality that Brighton did have. The fact they've lost them for absolutely nothing. It makes it very difficult to replace, because it's hard to get players of the same quality for the same price of nothing. But also, I mean, you've lost some key players all in the same window, which is very difficult to recover from.
Yeah, definitely so. They have made quite a few signings. Sorry, I was just looking for one because I wasn't sure if she was first team or not. But we'll look through these signings then. So first up, Maria Olis Lagers. So this is a good deal. Free transfer. She's about 23 years old, coming in from FC Twente, who are very strong out in the Eredivisie. This seems like a really good bit of business. It's a very effective replacement for Kullberg. The thing that I want to get across is that it's not that these players are bad. It's just they've got to put so many players into a team, into a new system, and under new management as well. It's going to be a big undertaking for Vidic in his early stages.
I think it is a tough job. I will credit Brighton, because you look at this list, and as we go on to it, they've also done the same. They've brought in free transfers, so they have subsidised the losses a bit, but as you say, there's going to be so many new components in this Brighton team. I'd be very surprised if they got going immediately, but we'll see.
Yeah, free transfer, by the way, for Olis Lagers. Then Kiko Seike joining. This is probably their forward replacement. Yeah. She is, more plays off the right-hand side, but can play through the middle, and in pre-season we've seen her play as the focal point of the attack. I think that that's a role she can do very well. Kiko Seike, I think it's a good signing.
Yeah, very much so, and hopefully they'll be hoping that she can replace Turland's goals, because they need someone to do that job.
So it feels like a very difficult ask, though. It is an undisclosed fee, so again, we don't really know how much that is. I think if it's anything below 50,000, that's probably an okay price to pay for her, but it's not a game changer, I don't think, but I think she'll do okay.
Yeah.
And she is their only striker at the moment, so that is a bit of an issue. But they have got players who can play there, one of which is Fran Kirby. Let's talk about Super Fran then. This is a player, I love Fran Kirby. I think that's been well documented on this channel throughout the last 2 years. As a Chelsea fan, absolutely adore Frank Kirby. I think it's a fantastic signing. I still think she can compete at the top level. Yes, at Chelsea she's not really been given the minutes in recent seasons, but when you consider that Sjokke Nusken and Lauren James both play her same position, when you consider she's not really a striker anymore, I think that it was difficult for her to stay in the Chelsea team, but I think for Brighton she will be integral.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is a brilliant pick-up. I think, as you say, I think Kirby is still at the... there's a reason Chelsea have let her go, basically, because she's not at that elite level to compete for... the titles across the world anymore. I don't think Fran Kirby is at the level to be winning WCLs, but she is still a brilliant player. She can still cut it in the WSL, and for Brighton, she is going to be a big figure in that dressing room and a big figure on the pitch. If Brighton are to progress this season, if they are to perform well, it will be players like Fran Kirby who'll be leading them forwards.
Yeah, I mean, 105 goals and 192 appearances speaks for itself. A phenomenal talent, and I think that she will come in and perform very well. Those accolades, I mean, this list could have gone on all day, but we didn't really have enough space on the graphics. 7 Women's Super League titles, 5 Women's FA Cup titles, 2 League Cups, 2-time WFA Women's Footballer of the Year, and the all-time Chelsea record goal scorer with 101. I believe that's WSL goals than 4 others. But what a player. What an incredible player.
It's just crazy. That record is phenomenal. There's a very few number of players that can hold records and hold the amount of accolades that Fran Kirby does.
Yeah, 101 goals. I assume the 105 then includes friendlies or something. I'm not sure what's the difference in those stats, but fantastic player. And she's going to add so much to Brighton, so much leadership, so much experience that I think Brighton is lacking right now. So, what an excellent talent
definitely
Frank Kirby is. But I think she is the big pickup. They have made some other good signs though. Marit Awi, I'm not 100% on how to pronounce her name, but she does look like a good player. She plays centre-half for FC Twente. She's joining in on a free transfer, I believe. There's a lot of these where the fee just hasn't been reported, so it's either undisclosed or a free, and we just don't know. Apologies for that. If we could find out, we would. But Marit Awi, fantastic player, I think. She'll add a bit of centre-half cover. I don't think their centre-halves are necessarily their issue, though. They have Karabali and Bergsvand and Thorisdottir. Just a bit more cover in those positions is a smart thing to go and invest in. Then you've got Rachel McLaughlin. This is another player who will come in and play fullback. So this gives them another replacement for Kuhlberg. They've got a lot of fullbacks now. Olis Larkers can play both sides, but it favours the left-hand side. McLaughlin's more of that Kuhlberg replacement because she'll play on the right-hand side and rotate with Lee. Which one of those starts is going to be very interesting. I think we could see Menwen Lee start, but I guess we'll see. Rachel McLaughlin's slightly older, but does bring in that experience. And playing for Rangers, she has had quite a lot of experience of playing in competitions, in finals. She's got that experience that she can come across and bring into WSL. Up next, Rebecca Rayner. Rebecca Rayner is someone I don't think we'll see a whole lot of this season yet. It seems to be one more for the future. Hannah Poulter, kind of the same. Hannah Poulter's a goalkeeper coming in from the University of Southern California.
Wow.
Flying straight from an American university. Poulter seems like a really able backup. We still think that it'll be Bagley to start, but I think Poulter will come in and offer some good depth in that position. Then you've got Aisha Masaka, who, again, we don't know how much first-team involvement she'll have this season, but this is an exciting one. Undisclosed fee, coming in from BK Hack, and we might see her integrated this season. We might see her just have a year in the development squad, something like that. But she tends to play as a forward or a winger, so she is a good attacking player, quite an exciting youngster. I think that once they integrate her into the side, I think she'll be really strong. I wouldn't be surprised if they give her a year to get up to speed, because they have already got quite a few attackers.
Yeah, I mean, it's well set up from Brighton. I like, and this is why this business is very good. And we've still got 2 more signings, but they're future planning, which is what they need to do. When they have windows like this where they lose loads of players, it's good that they are future-proofing themselves. They're bringing in young, exciting players who may not be involved now, but definitely later down the line in the next couple of years, we're going to see them play. Which means they avoid having to bring those players in a couple of years, which means that they've got time to integrate them slowly. They're in charge of their development, and they can make sure that that they play the way they want them to play.
Yeah, then we've got Helena Kankovic from Chelsea. This is an excellent signing.
Yeah.
It's an excellent signing for me. I think that she's someone who has offered quite a lot of quality to Chelsea in the last few seasons, and a huge signing for Brighton.
Yeah, very much so. Again, another, Brighton have now brought in 2 players from Chelsea who last season were playing in a side that, were challenging for all 4 competitions, and that's incredible experience. And Kankovic is still a brilliant player. I mean, she never really got a look in at Chelsea, which is why she's moved on, and Brighton seems like the perfect place. This Brighton side, I look at these are the type of signings that will push Brighton up the table. Kankovic, Kirby, the likes, they're going to take Brighton from finishing in the lower half, pushing into that top half, because players like Kankovic, I mean, I was surprised when she signed, because I think it's a brilliant deal.
I wasn't massively surprised that she left Chelsea, she's gone to Brighton. I think she could have aimed higher up the league, but credit to Brighton actually in the project they're building, that Kankovic is interested. Then the big signing, for me, I'd argue their best signing, is Bruna Villamaya. She comes in from Barcelona, and obviously, I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? If a player coming in from Barcelona, they don't have bad players, Barcelona. So she's going to be very good. And if you look at her FBref profile, it's really strong. 5.33 shots per 90. That's very exciting. That ranks in the 99th percentile in the top 9 competitions.
Yeah.
Really exciting stuff. I think that when you look at how she plays, she could have still played for Barcelona. The problem that she has is she's competing in that position with Caroline Graham-Hansen, with Vicky Lopez. They've just signed Kika Nazareth. They've got Eva Payor joining. There's not really much space in that at the front line. So you can see why she's chosen to go out on loan. And you would think, with the other players at Barcelona blocking her path, she's got to be looking at a permanent next summer if she does well in this WSL campaign. So I don't think it would be with Brighton, but they've got a fantastic player for a year, and she could be the real difference maker for them this season. Shot creating actions at 5.13 per 90. That ranks in the 89th percentile. Her non-pen XG 0.40 and her non-pen goal 0.41 per 90. Both really strong numbers. So she's getting into a lot of good positions to take up chances. She's finishing those chances. She's obviously, you've got to mitigate that with the fact that she was playing in the best team in the world. Yeah. So it does it to a certain extent mean those numbers are slightly higher than you would expect, or skewed a bit, but for Brighton, if she can bring that sort of talent, I think she will be a very useful player. A great finisher, someone who is going to create a lot of chances for Kiko Seike, for Pauline Bremer, for Frank Kirby. Really exciting signing this on a loan deal for a year. It's brilliant. Yeah, it's really good. It's a really good coup.
Yeah, she's one of those players where you just know it's going to work out. I don't see a way that Villamaya performs badly.
No,
and that's an incredible talent to have coming into this Brighton side. And again, if you can link her up with players like Kirby, players like Kankovic, players like Seike, as you say, Brighton are going to be very dangerous coming forwards. And that is a huge tool, because if they can just outscore other teams, if they can, especially the teams in the bottom half, if they can rock up and just get that extra goal, they're going to win those games. Then suddenly you get points tallying up then, and then suddenly they're shooting up the table. Because that's the objective for Brighton, is to bring these players in to fire themselves further up the WSL table. And I look at these deals, and on paper, that's exactly what they should do.
Yeah, let's talk about how their squad looks then. We'll put the squad screen up now. We don't really know what formation Vidicic is going to come in and play, but from their first pre-season match, which unfortunately I couldn't find anywhere to actually watch the game, but from match reports that I've read, they seem to play a 4-2-3-1. Villamaya had a really good game. Seike scored a brace as well from that striker position, so that's interesting to see. We weren't exactly sure who would play through the middle, but it does look like it would be Kiko Seike. And so we put it into a 4-2-3-1. Now, obviously, this could change, but in goal, they are very solid. Bagley, Startup, Porter, Loak. I think that Porter's very much one for the future. Loak, again, I think is fairly young. And Startup quite young. Bagley, I think, will start in that keeper role still. The other three are there as rotation options. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if Hannah Porter's starting to push towards being that starting goalkeeper. Definitely looking at next season, they'll be looking at Porter and where that level is, because if they don't play her, she's got to be looking at other teams where she will play. And she is a very exciting young goalkeeper. So I think they'll be looking at how they can integrate her. Bagley did okay last season, but there were moments where she made some huge mistakes. I think she ranked as one of the lowest goalkeepers for goals prevented in the league last season. So in that regard, I think there are some doubts. And I know Brighton had some times of confusion because there's a lot of young new players. There was a lot of Obviously, the new manager, and they've got that again this year. But I think if Brighton are looking at heading up the league, a new goalkeeper is probably where they should be improving. I think that by bringing in Porter, they'll be hoping Porter will be able to be that starting goalkeeper soon.
Yeah, I think Bagley's one of those where if you can get the defensive solidity sorted out, she is a reliable goalkeeper. She's a good shot stopper. I just think the problem for Bagley was the high volume of shots that she was facing, in this Brighton side, because the defence. Defensively they were way too weak, and this season they've got to be stronger in the back.
Yeah, fair enough. I respect that opinion. Right back, they have solid cover now. I know they've lost Kuhlberg, but we think Menwenley will start in that role with McLaughlin as a reliable cover option. That could change. I wouldn't be surprised if we see McLaughlin start, but that is fairly good cover. That gives them rotation at right back. Their centre halves, now I'm not sure whether we can see Aoui come in and start over Karabali or who's going to start in that role. That's going to be really interesting to see. Right centre half, I'm fairly sure that Bergsvand will keep playing, though obviously Forrest Dottir as a really reliable backup. If Bergsvand has a couple of bad games, you've got Forrest Dottir who can come in and play well. They've also got Stevanovic, who I wasn't exactly sure where she plays, because on international duty she's been playing as a left centre half. She can also play defence in midfield. On Brighton's website she's on as a midfielder. On Football she's a defender. No idea, but it's a nice cover option at left centre half, and she can also play that defensive midfield role where they are a little bit low on midfielders, a little bit light. Then at left back they've got Pattinson and Olis Lagers. Now that's fantastic. If anything, they've got too many high quality left backs, because how do you drop either of those? Really difficult job there. We think Poppy Patterson will probably continue in her role because she was really good last season. But I wouldn't be surprised if Olis Lagers did start there, because she is a fantastic player. I'm really confused as to why they've signed two left backs who are very good. It's never a bad thing in football, I guess, to have competition places. Yeah. But when you've got two players who could start, inevitably they can't both be happy. Yeah. So that does create a bit of an issue in your camp. Looking at midfield then, now Vicky Losada, the experienced veteran, the Brighton captain, will likely continue in that midfield, alongside either Simmons, Kankovic or Kirby. Now, how they're exactly going to line up could dictate how they play. If it's more of a midfield three with a single pivot, they'll probably play Losada in the pivot and then Kankovic and Kirby. Yeah. They're looking to play a double pivot. We could see Kankovic in that role, but I'd more expect to see Simmons alongside Losada. Does then open up the question marks to why they've signed both Kirby and Kankovic, but we'll see, because it could be a more midfield three type thing, especially against weaker opposition. Yeah. I still think Kankovic can play in the pivot, though, to be fair. Then Kirby will play likely attacking midfield in rotation with Kankovic. Kirby could also play out wide, she could also play out front. You could just get her to run around the middle of the pitch and score goals. That's what she does. Yeah. So you don't need to give her a position. Just let her go out and play well. You've got on the right flank Via Maya, Haley and Rule. Rule's seems to be a really exciting player. Same with Haley. They're kind of blocking their development, but they are bringing in Bruno Via Maya, who is a phenomenal player and will take them to that next level, I think, potentially. On the left wing, you've still got the experienced veteran Pauline Bremer. She can also play through the middle. So while they've only got one striker and there is a bit of a doubt there about rotation, Kirby can play there. Yeah. You could probably play Via Maya there. She's versatile enough, and Bremer can play there. So there are options, and you've got Masaka as well, the young talent who could come in and do a job. On the left wing as well, you've got Gwyn Min, who we saw bits of last season, not a whole lot from. I think without Turland in the side, they'll be hoping that other players will step up, but as a rotation player, it's going to be difficult for her to have a huge impact. And then up front, they've only got Kike Seike. But Kike Seike has looked really good in pre-season, played well for Japan as well. So, yeah, I think they've done well. Yeah, I think Brighton coming forward look really, really dangerous. That if you've got a front four of Bremer, Kirby, Villamaya and Seike, that's a very good front four. That front four will deliver goals. And if you've got Kankovic or whoever behind, I really like this Brighton team. I think they look very, very strong in attacking areas. I have a few doubts defensively, but if they can... I don't have doubts about the quality. I have doubts about the organisation. But if you can get that back four organised, they have got the quality in defence to be strong. I think, Bergsvand and whoever plays left centre-half is going to be very, very good. And as you say, the left-backs and right-backs is very, very strong positions. So if they can get that organisation and that structure right, I think Brighton could be looking at a really strong campaign. And very, very hopeful that Brighton can deliver this season. Just imagine they hadn't lost Ellie Turland. I would be... that'd be ridiculous. But yeah, let's look at their first 5 fixtures then and talk about how that might pan out. They start with Everton at home, which I think is a very favourable fixture.
Huge
I think
game.
that's a game they will be hoping to take 3 points from. I think Everton are an okay side, and I know they've signed Hayashi and they've taken Sari from Brighton, but I don't think they are. I think if there's any gap, it's that Brighton are ahead.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a huge gap, but if there is, I think Brighton are the stronger team. They'll be hoping to win this game. I think they've made huge strides over the summer. I think players like Kirby, Kankovic, Maya, they are difference makers in that regard. So I think they can. I think they should be hoping to win that first game. The thing to consider is obviously Brian Sorensen's Everton are set up well. They have been, they've been together for a while now, whereas this Brighton side is always just a completely new team.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to predict in that aspect, but I think that is a game that we're hoping to win. Then Manchester City away, this is almost a write-off.
It's a free hit.
Honest. Yeah, you can't lose.
Exactly.
Other than, obviously, you can literally lose.
Yes.
But I don't think, unless it's like 5,
Exactly.
6,
I
think you're okay.
If they lose in a respectable fashion, then it doesn't matter.
But they beat City last
They
season.
did, and if they win again, that'll be one hell of a result.
Limbs.
So maybe that's what they're pushing for. But yeah, that game's a bit of a. It's a free hit. If they lose, they lose. They win. That is a brilliant result.
Yeah, then Aston Villa at home, a return for Katie Robinson. Going to be an interesting one. I think that'll be a tough match.
Yeah.
Villa looks strong, but you never know.
Two sides under new management could go either way, really.
Yeah, we'll see how Villa get on their first 2 games. Then Crystal Palace away.
Must win.
This is, as you say, must-win game. But Crystal Palace just coming out of the Championship. It's a game Brighton really shouldn't have any issues with. And if they do, it's going to reflect one of 2 ways. You can look at it as, well, Brighton are in trouble, or the Crystal Palace are actually really strong. Either way, Brighton are in trouble. And then as we get towards the end of October, just before the international break, Manchester United at home, a return for Ellie Turland against this Brighton team. It's going to be a tough one. Man United are a very good side, but if there's any team in that top 6 you're going to disrupt this season, it could be Man United. They've still not signed a goalkeeper.
They haven't.
And by the time we get to the start of the season, they might have, because we are obviously recording these previews in advance of the season, and obviously the transfer window goes on after that.
Yeah.
But it does feel like United might need a goalkeeper. If not, they might be in trouble. But we will see. Brighton look good. I think there's a lot to be excited about. I do think there should be some caution, obviously, because they have lost their best player and their second best player and their third best player. They've lost all of them, but they have signed a lot of exciting players. I do think players like Kirby, Maya, they do make a huge difference. Loose sort of prediction, Harry, where would you see them in the table? Who are they above right now, and where is it tight?
I feel for Brighton, because I think even if they have a good campaign, it's very difficult, because for me the top 6 is pretty nailed on. You've got your big 4 and then Liverpool and Tottenham.
And Villa at the moment.
Villa look good as well. It's going to be tough. If Brighton get it right, I think they'll be alright. I don't think they'll go down. I don't think they'll be in that conversation.
I think in the conversation, I don't think they will go down.
Yeah, I think they're going to be in between though. They're not. You'll have the bottom 3 or 4 that are fighting it out to stay up. You'll have the top 6, top 6, 7. They're going to find themselves 8th, probably. Exactly where they 8th.
I don't know. For me, they are still behind Leicester, and they're tight. Ooh. I think that Palace are below them at the moment. I think West Ham have had a really tough window. I think it's tight then between them and Everton. Yeah. So I'd probably say 9th.
Fair enough.
I think their points difference though will be bigger to those bottom sides. Last season they finished 9th, but they were only a point ahead of 11th. But that didn't really matter because Bristol City was so low. I think that Brighton are probably a little bit ahead of those sides, and I think with Palace being more competitive and potentially taking points off teams like Palace and West Ham, I think we will see a tighter drop zone this season. I think Brighton will just be ahead of it. They might get dragged into it in the early stages because those first 5 matches are quite difficult. They've got City, Villa, United in there. They would want to take 6 points from those first 5, but if they do slip up against either Everton or Crystal Palace, they could find themselves in trouble. But in the early stages, but I think they will bounce back from that eventually. They look quite a good team. I think once Kiko Seke gets firing in this division, I think once Bruno Maya gets firing, Frank Kirby should have no issues adapting. So I think they'll be all right in that regard. It's going to be interesting to see. I think there should be a lot of excitement for Brighton this season. Yeah,
definitely. And I think the other thing is just to count the City result. They're not some of them might see just bizarre. Beat City, which was brilliant. They had that 7-4 game against Bristol City, which was mental. I mean, I know they won the game, but you let Bristol City score 4 goals. You did score 7. Brighton had so many unexplained. Even the positive games were sometimes unexplainable.
Yeah.
And yes, it's great they won the game, but you also have to look at the games like that and go, how did they concede forward Bristol City? So it's one of those. I think
that was all of Bristol City's goals, wasn't it?
Thestrap, which got scored 4, that was it. But I think, for Brighton, cut out the silly results, don't drop points to teams below you, and they should be in for a good campaign.
Yeah, will be interesting to see. But that's everything from us today. If you want to go and watch our preview from yesterday, then go check that out on screen now. That'll be all about Aston Villa. And also, obviously, we've done Arsenal as well. And look out for every other day as we're going to be doing previews right up until the start of the WSL season with all of the WSL clubs. And obviously our predictions and stuff like that in the week before. But yeah, I'm very excited to get back to WSL action. We're only 2 weeks away now.
Yes.
Very exciting times. So going to be interesting to see what Brighton do this season. I'm very excited for the season. But that is everything from us today. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.